Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. D1. Marcus Aurelius said that, and it still echoes like thunder through the ages. In a world obsessed with appearances, reactions, and approval, true confidence is rare. Stoics, through brutal introspection and mental discipline, mastered the art of inner strength. They didn't chase validation. They didn't run from failure. And they sure as hell didn't make excuses. If you want to know what truly separates confident men from the rest, stay locked in. This video dives deep into 7 behaviors confident men never tolerate in themselves. Watch until the very end, because the last one might be the one that's holding you back the most. And if any part of this hits home, like the video, subscribe, drop a comment, and share your story. Let's build something real. Chapter 1: Seeking validation and approval from others. The moment you start seeking validation is the moment you give away your power. The second your self-worth becomes dependent on how others see you, you've already lost control of your identity. Confident men understand this at their core. They don't perform for approval, and they don't mold themselves to fit into someone else's expectations. They operate from internal standards, not external applause. That doesn't mean they're arrogant, aloof, or socially tone-deaf. It means their sense of self isn't on the auction block every time someone raises an eyebrow. Stoics believed in virtue, living in alignment with reason, nature, and personal integrity. That kind of inner congruence made them unshakable. They weren't driven by whether the crowd cheered or booed. They understood that public opinion is fickle and often irrelevant. Marcus Aurelius ruled over millions and still reminded himself daily that praise and blame are just noise. He wrote in his private journals, "It never ceases to amaze me, we all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." That's a man who understood the trap. The confident man of today channels that same mindset. He knows who he is, what he stands for, and why he does what he does. He doesn't dress to impress, he dresses to express. He doesn't speak to gain approval, he speaks to reveal truth. And if others don't like it, that's none of his business. Because when your sense of self is rooted in something deeper than public opinion, you become immune to the emotional volatility of external judgment. Seeking validation is a trap. It's a bottomless pit. You get a few likes, a few compliments, a pat on the back, and suddenly you're hooked. But it never ends. The more you chase it, the more enslaved you become. It makes you weak. It turns you into a mirror, only reflecting what others want to see, never showing what you really are. It's a slow death of authenticity. But the man who walks his own path, guided by his values, becomes a flame. And people are drawn to fire. Not everyone will like the heat, but they'll respect the burn. That kind of energy commands attention not because it asks for it, but because it radiates it. There's no desperation. No people-pleasing. No mask. Just presence, power, and peace. This doesn't mean you shut yourself off from feedback. It means you filter that feedback through your own principles. You stay grounded in your mission. You measure yourself not by the reactions you get, but by how well you align with your chosen code. That's where real confidence comes from. From doing the hard thing when no one's watching. From staying true when the pressure to conform is loud. From knowing deep down that your approval of yourself outweighs anyone else's opinion. And ironically, once you stop needing validation, people start giving it to you. That's the paradox. You become attractive by being self-contained. You become magnetic by not chasing. Because most people are out here begging to be seen. But the man who is already whole? He stands out without trying. He doesn't compete. He creates. He doesn't convince. He embodies. So stop asking for permission to be yourself. Stop waiting for applause before you move. Own your space. Speak your truth. Walk with conviction. And remember, when you no longer need validation, you become the kind of man who naturally earns it. Chapter 2. Fearing failure and rejection. Failure is not the enemy. Rejection is not the end. Confident men see both as part of the process, proof that they're alive and striving. The Stoics believed in the dichotomy of control. You can't control the outcome, but you can control the effort. And that's where real power begins. A confident man lives by this law. He takes the shot, knowing he might miss, but he also knows that not shooting at all, that paralysis, that fear-based inaction, is the only true defeat. Rejection doesn't shrink him. It refines him. Every no carves him into something sharper, more focused, more resilient. Failure doesn't break him, it chisels away the parts that aren't built to last. In fact, a man who hasn't failed isn't dangerous, he's untested. He hasn't been forged. He's still soft clay. It's through fire that steel is made, and confidence is no different. It comes from scars, not smooth roads. It's not born in comfort, it's born in chaos, in setbacks, in nights when everything goes wrong and you still show up. The more you face resistance, the more you understand your own power. The Stoics didn't pray for an easy life. They trained for a hard one. They saw every failure as a test of character, every rejection as a moment to exercise virtue. When someone told them no, they didn't crumble, they rose. That's the kind of man who commands respect. Not because he wins all the time, but because he never folds. So when something doesn't go his way, a confident man doesn't spiral. He doesn't panic or blame others. He doesn't whine about how unfair life is. He pauses. He reflects. He gets tactical. He sharpens his aim and fires again. There is no shame in missing the mark, only in refusing to fire again. He understands that rejection isn't personal, it's data. Information. A feedback loop. It's not an indictment of his worth, it's a redirection of his focus. Failure isn't final, it's fuel. The kind that burns clean and drives a man further than any applause ever could. The man who fears neither? He becomes unstoppable. Why? Because fear stops 99% of people before they ever begin. They're so afraid of looking stupid, getting hurt, or hearing no that they sabotage their own progress. But the confident man knows something the rest don't. Rejection is just a door. Sometimes it's locked. Sometimes it's slammed. But it's still just a door, and you can knock again, break it down, or find another way in. What you never do is turn around and pretend you never wanted to go through it. The man who fears failure never grows. He chooses safety over sovereignty. He'll stay in a dead-end job, a toxic relationship, or a life half-lived just to avoid the sting of rejection. But that sting? That pain? It's the exact pressure needed to create strength. To awaken purpose. The man who embraces the discomfort becomes anti-fragile. He doesn't just endure the fall, he gets stronger from it. And let's be clear, confidence is not arrogance. It's not delusion. It's not pretending you're immune to failure. It's knowing that failure doesn't define you. What defines you is how you respond. That quiet, unshakable belief that no matter what happens, I'll figure it out. That's real confidence. That's what Stoicism teaches. And that's what the world desperately needs more of. So the next time you hesitate, before you make the call, before you ask her out, before you pitch the idea, ask yourself, what am I really afraid of? Embarrassment? Disapproval? Looking weak? Good. That's the signal. Move toward it. Because the man who's willing to be rejected 1,000 times is the man who eventually wins. Not because he's better, but because he never stopped. Let others seek comfort. Let them tiptoe around risk. The confident man embraces the mess. He walks through the fire with his head up and his ego down. Because deep down, he knows every setback sharpens the blade. Every failure is a teacher. And every rejection is just another step closer to something greater. So fail forward. Get rejected often. Because the man who can do that without losing his soul, he's already miles ahead. He's already free. Chapter 3: Making Excuses. Excuses are the comfort food of the weak-minded. They taste good in the moment, but they rot you from the inside. Like junk for the soul, they offer short-term relief while guaranteeing long-term regret. Confident men don't feed on excuses. They feast on responsibility. They don't hide behind reasons, they step forward with results. The Stoics believe that no matter what happens to you, you are still fully accountable for your character. Life will be unfair, brutal, and random. But your response? That's always yours to command. That means no blame shifting, no whining, no waiting for better conditions. Just action. Always action. The confident man understands a timeless truth: life doesn't owe you anything. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to hand you the perfect timing or ideal setup. And the more you wait, the more life will pass you by. So when something goes wrong, when plans fall apart, people disappoint, or chaos hits, he doesn't look around for someone to point at. He looks inward. He asks, what was in my control? What could I have done better? Where did I slack? That mindset doesn't just build discipline, it builds character. It builds self-respect. And over time, others begin to notice. They trust him. Because they see a man who doesn't make excuses, he makes moves. Excuses are seductive. I didn't have time. I wasn't in the mood. It's just not the right moment. All of these are lies, not necessarily to the world, but to yourself. And that's the most dangerous kind of betrayal. Because once you start believing your own excuses, you weaken your foundation. You tell your subconscious that comfort matters more than growth. And soon, mediocrity becomes your default. But a confident man kills those lies with brutal honesty and consistent action. He doesn't wait to feel like it, he trains himself to do it anyway. He doesn't need motivation. He needs a mission. A man of excuses is a man of erosion. Every excuse chips away at your self-trust. You start to second-guess. You lose your edge. And then you wonder why your life feels stuck. But the man who owns everything, his decisions, his mistakes, his habits, becomes unstoppable. Because when you own your flaws, you can fix them. When you own your time, you can shape your future. When you own your mindset, you become a force that external chaos can't shake. In Stoicism, there's no room for self-pity. Marcus Aurelius didn't sit around journaling about how unfair his emperor duties were. He showed up every day, despite the wait, despite the wars. He didn't say, I'm tired. He said, it's time. That's the mindset. And that's what separates the man who leads from the man who hides. In a world drowning in distractions, blame, and shortcuts, the man who takes full ownership of his time, his emotions, his behavior, and his outcomes becomes rare and powerfully magnetic. While others are busy explaining why they can't, he's out there doing what they won't. He doesn't look for loopholes. He doesn't settle for good enough. He demands more from himself first and then from the world. And that energy? It commands respect. Excuses are the silent killers of dreams. They don't strike all at once, they wear you down gradually. One skipped workout becomes a week. One lie to yourself becomes a habit. One broken promise becomes your new baseline. But the confident man guards against that decay. He builds rituals. He honors his word. He treats excuses like enemies, and he crushes them with action. Not because he's superhuman, but because he's disciplined. Because he knows the truth, you don't rise by being comfortable. You rise by choosing what's hard over what's easy, consistently. And that's where true confidence is born. Not from pretending to have it all together. Not from appearing flawless. But from being brutally honest about your weaknesses and refusing to let them rule you. That kind of self-awareness, that kind of responsibility, that's rare. And when people see it in you, they respect it. Because deep down, everyone's tired of the lies. Everyone's tired of hearing excuses from themselves, from others. And the man who lives without them? He becomes a lighthouse in a fog of mediocrity. So the next time you catch yourself about to make an excuse, pause. Ask yourself, is this helping me grow or keeping me stuck? Then act accordingly. Cut the drama. Kill the delay. And move forward like the man you know you're capable of becoming. That's what the Stoics would do. That's what the confident man must do. Chapter 4. Being judgmental. Judging others is the ego's attempt to feel superior without actually becoming better. It's the mental shortcut for men who lack the discipline to improve themselves. Confident men don't fall for that trap. They know that tearing others down doesn't elevate you, it only drags everyone into the dirt. It doesn't reflect strength, it reveals weakness. In fact, the need to constantly compare and criticize is a neon sign of insecurity, not superiority. And the Stoics? They had zero patience for that noise. Epictetus said it best, it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. And that's the danger, judgment kills curiosity. It shuts the door on growth before it even begins. Confidence is quiet. It doesn't need a stage or an audience. It doesn't seek validation through ridicule. Insecurity is loud, it needs to shout, mock, and gossip just to feel noticed. The man who constantly criticizes others is usually the one most dissatisfied with himself. He sees another man's success as a threat, not as inspiration. He views difference as something to mock, not something to learn from. But the confident man is too locked in on his own development to be distracted by petty comparisons. He doesn't need to tear down someone else's building, he's busy building his own. A man grounded in confidence uplifts where he can, ignores where he must, and keeps his eyes on his own path. He knows that every ounce of mental energy spent judging others is an ounce he's stolen from his own growth. He resists the urge to be petty because he knows how costly it is. And most importantly, he recognizes that the world is not a competition to be won at someone else's expense, it's a personal journey to be mastered through discipline and self-awareness. Being judgmental creates noise in your mind. It clutters your thinking with assumptions, envy, and imagined superiority. It makes you reactive, bitter, and emotionally fragile. That inner noise drowns out clarity. But the confident man preserves his mental stillness. He protects his focus like a warrior protects his weapon. He doesn't waste time trying to diagnose other people's flaws, he's too busy confronting his own. That's not weakness. That's power. Because the man who turns the lens inward is the one who actually evolves. Stoicism teaches us to remove the ego from the equation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be." The one. And that's the heart of it. Don't point fingers. Don't criticize the path someone else is walking. Focus on your own. Your discipline. Your principles. Your word. Because every second you spend judging someone else is a second you're not improving yourself. That's not just a loss of time, it's a betrayal of potential. The confident man is grounded in humility. He knows he doesn't have all the answers. That's why he keeps learning, keeps listening, keeps growing. He doesn't confuse arrogance with strength. He doesn't elevate himself by diminishing others. In fact, when he sees someone succeeding, he takes note. He asks, "What can I learn from this?" When he sees someone struggling, he asks, "How can I help?" or at the very least, stay out of their way. That's real masculinity. That's emotional intelligence. That's what separates a man walking the path of strength from one trapped in the cage of ego. Judgment is seductive because it's easy. It requires no effort, no reflection, no change. But confidence? Confidence is forged through struggle, failure, self-correction, and relentless effort. That's why so few people have it. It takes discipline to bite your tongue when gossip invites you in. It takes strength to walk away from a conversation built on tearing others down. But that's the path. That's what Stoicism demands. Not passive silence, but active restraint. Not cold detachment, but principled focus. And here's the truth, the man who judges less lives lighter, freer, sharper. Because judgment isn't just about others, it's a mirror. Every time you criticize someone else, you train your mind to find flaws, to seek imperfection, to focus on what's missing. Eventually, that lens turns inward and you begin to destroy your own sense of worth. But the confident man? He doesn't play that game. He protects his mental environment like a sacred space. No gossip. No envy. No noise. Just mission. Just discipline. Just growth. So if you catch yourself being judgmental, pause. Ask yourself, what am I really avoiding? What am I afraid to look at in myself? Because every judgment is a missed opportunity to grow. And every act of humility is a brick laid on the foundation of confidence. The Stoics knew this. They weren't perfect, but they were committed. Committed to mastering the self, not controlling others. That's the invitation. Drop the judgment. Raise the standard. Stay in your lane. Keep your eyes on your own reflection, not in vanity, but in self-honesty. Because that's the only place confidence is truly built. Not in tearing others down, but in lifting yourself up. Relentlessly. Silently. Powerfully. Chapter 5, Poor Communication and Conflict Avoidance. Avoiding difficult conversations is the slow death of any relationship, romantic, professional, or personal. It's a silent corrosion that eats away at trust, connection, and authenticity. Confident men know this. They don't dodge tension, they face it with composure and courage. Because they understand something most people ignore, conflict, when handled with clarity and respect, is not a threat, it's an opportunity. A chance to align expectations, to deepen understanding, to sharpen emotional intelligence. It's the discomfort that leads to real connection, not destruction. The Stoics never ran from truth, no matter how sharp it cut. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, they wrote endlessly about confronting reality head-on, not dressing it up in illusions. Stoicism is about clear perception, and part of that clarity is the willingness to speak honestly. To name the thing. To shine light where shadows gather. Confident men absorb this. They don't lie to avoid tension. They don't pretend just to keep the peace. They reject the illusion of harmony when silence is hiding a storm. Instead, they step into that storm and bring order to it. They don't sugarcoat. They don't twist words to manipulate outcomes. They speak their truth, calmly, directly, and with respect. Not to dominate. Not to shame. But to create alignment. Because they know that avoiding a conversation now only multiplies the pain later. They value short-term discomfort if it leads to long-term strength. That's real maturity. That's real presence. And when you bring that kind of presence into your relationships, it becomes a stabilizing force. A grounding energy that others trust. When issues arise, the confident man doesn't shut down. He doesn't stonewall. And he doesn't blow up in anger just to feel powerful. He chooses something harder: control. He listens, not to reload, but to understand. He clarifies, not to win, but to build. He navigates, not to escape, but to solve. He uses words like tools, not weapons. He communicates with the intent to heal, not harm. That is a rare kind of strength. The kind that can't be faked. The kind that commands respect without ever raising its voice. Because communication isn't just about talking. It's about responsibility. You're responsible for how you show up, for the clarity of your message, for the courage to say what needs to be said. Weak men hide behind silence and passive aggression. Confident men step forward and speak with intention. Not every conversation will go perfectly. That's not the goal. The goal is honesty, presence, integrity. And those are the building blocks of trust, not just with others, but with yourself. Poor communication is the hallmark of weak leadership. It signals fear. It signals emotional immaturity. The man who avoids conflict is a man who fears the truth. He fears judgment. He fears being disliked. And so he swallows his words until they become resentment. But the confident man? He embraces truth. Even when it's messy. Even when it risks misunderstanding. Especially then. Because he knows the only way out is through. You don't become stronger by avoiding the fire. You walk into it. You come out the other side forged. Stoic philosophy trains this mindset. It teaches that the obstacle is the way. That courage isn't found in comfort, but in confrontation. Not aggressive confrontation, but courageous confrontation. Saying what must be said, even if your voice shakes. Asking the hard questions. Drawing the necessary boundaries. The confident man doesn't just talk when it's easy. He speaks most clearly when it's hard. That's when it counts. That's when your character shows. And here's the deeper truth: when you avoid hard conversations, you betray yourself. You abandon your own standards. You trade integrity for temporary peace. But that peace is fake, and it will rot the foundation of every relationship you build. Confident men refuse to make that trade. They hold the line, even if it costs them comfort. They say the thing, even if it shakes the room. Because they know a room that can't handle truth is already broken. So if you want to walk the path of confidence and stoic strength, start here. Open your mouth when it matters. Don't let silence do damage. Don't let pride write checks your honesty won't cash. Lean into discomfort. Name the tension. Speak your truth with calm. And remember, real men don't just fight battles out in the world. They fight for clarity in conversation. They fight for alignment in connection. And they never, ever avoid the hard talk. because that's where all the real growth begins. Chapter 6: Being a Keyboard Warrior. Hiding behind a screen to criticize others is modern cowardice. It's the illusion of power without any of the risk. It feels like you're doing something, like your voice matters, like your anger has impact. But in truth, it's shouting into a void that doesn't care. The confident man knows this. He doesn't waste time trying to tear down what he could be building. He doesn't argue with strangers online just to feel superior for 5 seconds. That kind of superiority is cheap, fragile, and meaningless. It's not strength. It's noise. Empty, insecure noise. The Stoics would have laughed at internet outrage culture. They would have seen it for what it is, a trap for undisciplined minds. Epictetus said, "It's not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them." Today, men disturb themselves over likes, retweets, and comments from people they'll never meet, people who hold no weight in their lives. The Stoics taught that the only opinion that should carry weight is the one you have of yourself. That's where true peace comes from. A confident man understands this. He's not addicted to external reactions. He's anchored in internal clarity. He doesn't feel the need to prove anything to faceless critics. He doesn't get baited into battles that don't matter. He doesn't perform for digital approval. He moves in silence. He builds in private. He sharpens his craft, trains his mind, and focuses on results. He lets his actions speak louder and longer than any opinion ever could. He's not there to win arguments. He's there to win reality. Engaging in anonymous conflict is just a distraction. A dopamine hit masquerading as meaningful dialogue. It's a way to feel momentarily significant without doing anything that truly matters. The confident man isn't seduced by that. His mission is too important. His time is too valuable. He doesn't need to clap back at every insult or challenge every bad take. Because deep down, he knows if it doesn't change his path or alter his principles, it doesn't deserve his energy. Confidence doesn't need to be loud. It's not reactive. It's composed. Deliberate. It knows when to speak and when to walk away. The man who constantly seeks to assert himself online is often the one who feels most powerless offline. But the confident man is dangerous where it counts in the real world. In his business, his body, his discipline, his leadership. That's where he earns respect, not with attitude, but with accomplishment. And this is where Stoicism sharpens him even further. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily not to waste time on the opinions of others. "You could leave life right now," he wrote. "Let that determine what you do and say and think." The man who embraces this doesn't argue with strangers behind screens. He doesn't let petty debates pollute his clarity. He doesn't climb into the mud just to prove he's cleaner. He simply walks past it, eyes forward. If something offends him, he doesn't tweet about it, he reflects. If something needs fixing, he doesn't post a rant, he acts. He understands that real influence happens offline, in the way you show up every single day. Not in what you say, but in how you live. He doesn't crave attention. He commands it without needing to ask. The confident man never lets his ego drag him into empty battles. He's not there to win comments. He's there to win life. That means letting go of the urge to always be right, to always respond, to always clap back. That impulse? That's the ego begging for validation. That's insecurity in disguise. And Stoicism crushes that urge. It trains you to respond with calm, not chaos. With action, not argument. So the next time you feel the pull to prove yourself online, to jump into some digital arena and flex your opinions, ask yourself, Does this serve your mission? Does it make you stronger? Or is it just another excuse to avoid the harder work of building something real? Because in the end, no one remembers what you tweeted. They remember how you lived. Chapter 7. Playing the Victim. Victimhood is a seductive trap. It's warm, familiar, and deceptively comforting. It gives you permission to stay small, to stay stuck, to avoid effort, to point fingers outward instead of inward. But the confident man, the Stoic man, refuses to wear that identity, no matter how tempting it may be. He knows the truth that many avoid: life is not fair, and it was never meant to be. That's not the flaw in the system, it is the system. The Stoics never cried out for fairness. They expected hardship. They didn't wake up hoping the world would hand them peace. They woke up prepared to create it for themselves. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet still wrote to himself daily about death, betrayal, and failure, not as complaints, but as reminders of what to endure with grace. The confident man adopts that same mindset. He doesn't wait for life to feel easy. He trains for it to be hard. He doesn't blame the world when things go wrong. He doesn't say, "Why me?" He says, "Try me." He doesn't spiral when a door closes. He looks for the next one or breaks one down. Pain, failure, betrayal, none of it defines him. These things are inevitable. But how he responds, that's where the power lies. That's where identity is forged. Not in what happens, but in how he rises after it. See, playing the victim has a twisted reward system. It gives you short-term comfort. People might feel sorry for you. You get to avoid accountability. But there's a cost, and it's brutal. Victimhood strips you of agency. It convinces you you're powerless, when in fact, you're simply avoiding the discomfort of growth. It tells you the world owes you something, and it never does. The confident man would rather own the pain and rise from it than sit in it and rot. He doesn't need sympathy. He needs strategy. That mindset is what separates the drifting from the driven. The average man gets stuck in his story, his wounds, his trauma, his betrayal. But the Stoic man uses those very things as the raw material for greatness. He transforms setbacks into fuel. He turns rejection into redirection. He lets injustice harden his resolve, not his heart. Because he understands, suffering alone doesn't make you stronger. Choosing to respond with clarity and courage does. The world doesn't need more men who complain. It needs men who confront. Men who say, "Yes, that happened. And now what?" That's real leadership. That's real masculinity, not bravado, not volume, but ownership. The confident man understands that what happened to him may not have been his fault, but what happens next absolutely is his responsibility. The Stoics believed that character is forged in fire, that we should welcome adversity as the training ground for virtue, that without resistance there is no strength. Epictetus was born a slave. Seneca was exiled and condemned. Aurelius ruled during plague and war. None of them chose victimhood. All of them chose discipline, reflection, action. So stop waiting for the world to feel sorry for you. Stop expecting rescue. No one is coming. You are the only one who can rewrite your story. And until you do, you'll remain trapped in the same chapter, one filled with excuses and self-pity. Confidence is not a feeling. It's a decision. A choice to act with dignity, no matter how undignified the past may have been. Your scars don't make you weak. Hiding behind them does. Face the mirror. Face your failures. Own your part in them, and move forward like a man who understands this simple Stoic law: you are not what happened to you. You are what you do next. Someone to rescue you. Stop blaming others for the life you haven't built. Confidence isn't given. It's forged in fire, in solitude, and in the refusal to stay broken. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more men who lead by example, who speak less and do more. Men who walk with quiet power because they've mastered themselves first. That's what true confidence looks like. Not arrogance. Not performance. But grounded strength earned through discipline, clarity, and resilience. The Stoics didn't chase validation. They didn't fear failure. They didn't play the victim. They faced life head-on, knowing that the only true control is over your own mind and actions. So if you saw yourself in any of the things we discussed today, good. That means you're aware. And awareness is the first step toward becoming unshakable. If this episode resonated with you, drop a comment below, share your story, your breakthrough, or what you're working on. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with a man who needs to hear it. We rise by reflecting, but we grow by sharing. Until next time, keep your mind sharp, your actions precise, and your purpose unwavering. Stay stoic. Stay solid.